Good morning, guys. So today we are going to get started on that digital drawing of a landscape scene. Okay, so last week on Friday, hopefully everybody got a chance to find the photograph of whatever landscape scene you want to do, and you have that saved to your iPad. We are going to need that today, and we are also going to be using that Sketches School app to do our drawing. Now, with that image, we are going to be simplifying these images a little bit to make it work for what we're trying to do. Okay, so again, we're going to be using that atmospheric perspective we've been talking about. And the way that we're going to be simplifying these images is we're going to break these down into just two colors. So we are going to be taking a look at the color wheel today. Remember that I attached this in when we were talking about value and hue with perspective. So this is shared with you guys on Google Classroom if you want to take a look at this one, or you could search for a different one, totally up to you. But looking at the color wheel, what you're going to do is you're going to pick out two colors that are next to each other. Okay, so that could either be a primary color and a secondary color, but not like yellow orange, for example. So my two colors are going to be yellow and orange, which are next to each other. So these colors that are a little bit further out on the color wheel are the two pairs that I'm talking about. So for mine, I want to do yellow and orange. If you do want to challenge yourself a little bit and do three different hues or colors, you could do something like yellow, orange, and red for those of you that would like to. Okay, so any two or three that are directly next to each other that are raised a little bit will work for this. Okay, so that's the first thing is you want to figure out what you would like to do for your colors. Okay, once we have that figured out, we're going to go to the Sketches School app and start a new image here. So we're going to start by putting in the color of your sky. So for me, I'm doing yellow and orange. Yellow is a little bit lighter valued color than orange. So I'm going to start with my yellow, but I do want to make sure that it's fairly light in value. Okay, so once I have the yellow that I'm looking for, which is going to be a little bit lighter, let's say this one right here, go ahead and hit modify. And for this first color, it makes it really easy. We could just use this paint roller tool to fill in the entire background with that color. So now I have my sky across the entire image. Now eventually we could come back and add in some details like clouds, if you want to add in the sun, birds in the sky, things like that are okay. But we're going to come back and do that a different day and just work on our larger shapes for right now. Okay, so once we have our lightest value in, now we're going to start to darken that value a little bit. So I do want to bring this down so that it's a noticeable difference. So if you look in this area, this is our color that we have for our background. And then it shows you what the new color looks like with the adjustments that you're making to it. So we want to see these right next to each other so that we have a noticeable difference. Okay, so the first one is that we darken the value a little bit. And then down here at the bottom, like we talked about the other day, we could change the hue or the color. So I'm doing that yellow and orange. So I want to start to slowly slide this so it's going to become more of an orange color. So eventually, as I'm working down or closer in my image, it's going to get a darker value as well as more of that orange hue. So for my scene, I'm just going to be doing some mountain ranges. So I'm going to be doing the furthest mountain range that you could see with this color. So it should still be fairly light. Obviously, there's a lot of different tools on here that you guys hopefully got a chance to play around with when we took a look at the YouTube video talking about what all those different tools are. Really up to you which ones you feel comfortable with. I'm not going to tell you guys you have to use a certain one. Totally up to you. Right? And then same thing with the size of the tools. Remember that it shows you the size here. And again, I'm just going to be doing a mountain scene, so I'm going to be using this tool to put in some mountains. Okay. Now, one thing we want to do is every once in a while zoom out a little bit and make sure that we're taking a look at the entire image. Okay. Which could sometimes be a little tricky. Okay. Now, for some reason, if I was going to try and use that the roller tool, even though that line goes all the way across my image, for some reason when I click in this area, oh, it did that time. Okay, so hopefully that will work for you too. The first time I tried that, it didn't work too well filling in that whole area, but it did that time. So hopefully you guys will be able to get that to work too, and then you could just come back and fill in the rest of your lines. Okay, so that's my first color. So I'll just be doing that same thing, click and hold, so that I could slowly start to change the value to be a little bit darker. And then again, I'm using yellow and orange, so I'm also going to have that start to be a little bit oranger. And then make sure that you hit modify so it changes that color. And then I could go ahead and start drawing in my next row of mountains. Now, another thing that happens as things are getting closer to the viewer is remember that there's going to be more detail. So that's really going to depend on what type of image you're drawing. For me, those are mountains, so these are going to become more and more jagged or have more texture to them as they come further or closer in the foreground. So that's one thing that I want to take into account as I'm working on these different areas. Okay, so I'll just do the basic shape first, and then I'm going to come back and start to add in some smaller details. So I could either pick a smaller brush and start to add in some details that way, or I could use one of these different tools, again, whatever you guys are feeling comfortable with, okay? But what I would do is come back and add some of those details, okay? For right now, I'm not gonna do that. Again, I'm just getting my basic shapes in, right? So again, I'm gonna darken the value a little bit and bring this over to the orange just a bit. Okay, so obviously everybody's image is going to be a little bit different. Take your time, and you should be going back and forth between the photo that you're using and obviously this drawing that we're creating. Okay, so again, a little bit darker value and a little bit more orange. All right, so we could see by changing the value and changing the hue gradually but noticeably with each one of those layers, we could start to see that illusion take place that it looks like these mountains are getting further and further back. Now, another thing that I would include in this step is, again, that texture, that detail on each one of those mountains. Now, I don't expect you guys to finish this entire drawing today. I don't want you to finish the entire drawing today because I don't want you to rush through it. So again, we're just focusing on getting our values, our hues or our colors, and those basic larger shapes. And again, make sure we're referring back and forth between the drawing that we're creating today and the photograph that we found on Friday. All right. Any questions, make sure you email me. And again, when you're finished, take a screenshot or save and post this image on Google Classroom, please. All right, guys, have fun.